Hello and welcome to this lengthy video in our series on constructive development theory. This one is about self-awareness, which is what CDT purports to measure. So my name is Dr. Darren Stevens, and in this video we'll be talking about the 7 levels of self-awareness. Why 7? Because that's what the data showed and that's what emerged from all of my research. Now, I have no problem with your perspective having fewer or greater numbers of levels. This is just a CDT angle. As you know from our other videos, from a CDT perspective, self-awareness is really your level of awareness of your intention in the moment to use specific 50 cognitive intentions. And that's it really. Can you choose to use them? Can you choose not to use them? Socrates believed that by active listening and questioning he could elevate his audience's self-awareness. That is to say, by asking exploratory questions about a person's intentions, he would hold a mirror to their thinking and bring to awareness their cognitive intentions, offering a more dynamic responsiveness in the moment. Maybe I added a few terms there from CDT, but the point is the same. To combine, say, Cook-Greuter's ideas and my research, self-awareness is really the acquisition of the third-person perspective called observer in CDT, which enables us to see ourselves as separate objects. And according to Cook-Greuter, we then become conscious of ourselves. However, even this is too ethereal for me, and I would prefer to say we become conscious of our awareness, of our intention in the moment. This is what my data showed. So let's jump straight in. These are the 7 levels within CDT and their labels. The labels are there because people need labels. They're not necessarily real. But if we are to differentiate from the capacity between like AQ5 and AQ9, then the labels play a small functional part. And I'm not going to explain every level in this video, or it would take about 45 minutes. So I will give an overview of the principles of 3 levels. And if you're a Bruce Lee fan like me, you will know why I'm using the pagoda effect. Pause the video here to read the slides. This waterfall is an illustration of the facets of CDT that combine to cement it as a theory and offer some foundation for what we're talking about today. Historically, research on self-awareness suggests that it is very limited and also biased towards flattering and improving yourself. Your level of self-awareness and mine is about how we join the dots of our construction of self, and what is more important is our awareness of how we join those dots. This is what separates self-awareness within CDT from other developmental theories. So the flow of dynamic intelligence within CDT looks like this, and our intention drives our awareness, which creates our choices, which determines our response in a moment. And you can see how that builds up, all measured by the awareness quotient, by the way, down the bottom there. On this slide you can see I've mapped the ideas of the other systems onto the AQ scale for reference. However, it's not as cut and dried as it first appears. There is no reason a person at AQ7 cannot choose to focus on self, or someone at AQ8 can choose to focus on other. This is the problem with labels and descriptions and systems lacking clarity. So if we have another go at it, it might look like this. The important thing to remember in all of the systems is that every stage is both a growth and a limitation, and the labels are essentially meaningless. CDT is not really about self versus other, ego versus something else. Instead, I want to demonstrate how CDT offers a very different perspective on self-awareness, because it's a very different way of looking at our cognitive complexity. So remember, this is how we are looking at self-awareness, how we know what we know about our choice of cognitive intention use in the moment. They are foundational to CDT. And on this slide, these create 2 very different behaviors despite being the same 2 cognitive intentions with different levels of awareness. So, thinking about self-awareness from a cognitive intention perspective, if you are aware of your intention at the moment, in the moment for global or details, and you're making your decisions from a position of awareness about which one to use, then your responses are going to be along the top of the diagram, meaning that your AQ level will emerge towards the top of the scale. And conversely, the less aware you are of your intention from the beginning, the less choice you have, and thus lower AQ scale, right? So in simple terms, if you don't know you're using global or details, then your first point of development is the unconscious red block to the right of the intention. Even if you're aware of the next part of your thinking, your score can only ever rise up to, let's say, AQ 6.8 over there. In order to go above 7, we must raise your level of awareness of your use of global at the very beginning of your thinking process. From a conscious perspective, you must actively choose to use global. And this is the best way to demonstrate self-awareness from a cognitive intention perspective. With the right feedback from the Identity Compass profile, an individual can have an intervention aimed at their specific thinking style. So remember that a descriptive system is not a vertical system. However, CDT knows which CIs to tweak in order to grow our self-awareness. So let's look at a few descriptions of levels within CDT now and how our self-awareness changes with each incremental level. So let's skip over this one. So although AQ4 exists, we begin with AQ5 because the majority of people reside at this and the next level. So this is why it's important to know. This phase of awareness is characterized by a rigid black and white style of thinking, where individuals are unable to consider the alternate viewpoints and insist that their way is the only way. For instance, if someone with an internal thinking style is presented with an external perspective, they will likely dismiss it. And this mindset can hinder personal and professional growth as they stick to familiar paths and fail to see the need for change or improvement. And the important part is, depending on the cognitive intentions that are out of balance, individuals may not recognize the need to achieve balance in their thinking and behaving. In this system, in AQ5, the individual may have various drivers, as each cognitive intention pair with a difference of over 40% will result in limitations and a lower AQ score. And the direction of intention will determine different outward behaviors. But the issue of imbalance remains crucial. An important aspect of the AQ system is an individual's capacity to remain resilient after failure. AQ5 won't handle this very well. And people in this phase of awareness tend to exhibit habituated responses and adhere to specific patterns of thinking, resulting in predictable behaviours. For example, those who only follow procedural paths will always follow a process regardless of the context. And conversely, those who only practice external thinking may consistently prioritise the opinion of others above their own. And we skip this one, and we skip AQ7. So let's look at AQ8. The term vertical introspection was coined by me in 2023, and it means nothing at all. Okay, however, it can be assumed to be a developmental tool that promotes a meta position to our thinking and feeling, and thus leads to improved self-awareness, as discussed in this video. Knowing or being aware is not itself an objective experience, but without it there could be no experience. It is that which makes experience possible, and yet is not itself an experience. That's the conventional wisdom. I disagree. I think being aware is an experience. The awareness of our awareness is an experience. And at AQ8, it is. Individuals at AQ8 have a high level of choice in their thinking and responding, and they have a deep understanding of their own construction of self. They are a lot more balanced between self and other, much more so than AQ6 and 7. And this extends to being balanced in their driver cognitive intentions, and they can choose which one to use in the moment. They are not bound by external validation from peers and are aware of the limitations of others' constructions of them. So recall from our previous videos that someone's construction of you is always going to be wrong. However, this can sometimes cause issues with colleagues who do not have the same level of understanding and cannot see the patterns that the AQ8 individual can see. And they may also be in a position of power in organisations due to their complex thinking and decision-making abilities. And this ties in with their ideas on resilience, where they are balanced between towards and away from, capable of accepting responsibility for their actions and recognising more of the external influence and influences impacting the outcome than, say, an AQ7 or 6. And resilience is accepted. Overall, an AQ8 individual is characterised by their strong sense of individuality rather than arrogance, as they are not really arrogating anything at all. AQ9 is great, but we're going to skip on to AQ10. So using Korzybski's terminology, AQ10 and 9 can construct the territory, not just the map. But in reality, there's no one here. It's not a real place. It's an intellectual dysutopia, okay? This is akin to Maslow's self-actualization, but with the added understanding that even self-actualization is a construction. And Maslow made it all up anyway, without ever having met anybody who he claimed he thought was self-actualized. At AQ10, one is able to construct their environment to match their construction of self. And this is the opposite of what the other levels are capable of, although some recognize that stages are indeed constructs and thus meaningless. To add to this perspective, once an AQ10 person constructs their environment to suit their construction of self, their construction of self becomes fluid enough to adapt in the moment to the changing needs of the constructed environment. And this is due to the fact that when we are capable of seeing the underlying constructions that constitute self, other, organisation, family, culture and so on, Any conflict is inherently also a construction, and thus an expression of the multifaceted nature of the territory, the level above the map. People lower down the AQ scale often present to coaches and other professionals with problems of agency or utility. However, AQ10 people know that the problem is always a problem of construction. It is then further limited by the individual's level of self-construction. Please see our video on the next level coaching for more on that. And this means that AQ10 can cope with the ambiguity of life, as it only seems ambiguous to the rest of us. At AQ10, the patterns that constitute ambiguity are also seen as a construction. It is simply a pattern we cannot discern at AQ7. But AQ10 can, as their balance is far greater than ours. Their dynamic intelligence is far greater than ours. And this has its advantages in a multifaceted and complex world. What looks like chaos to us is simply a higher level pattern of construction we cannot yet see. To summarize then, self-awareness from a constructed development theory perspective looks very different when you take into account the 50 cognitive intentions we use in the construction of our thinking. The culmination of the levels of self-awareness within CDT is that a person at AQ8 is at least twice as capable of choosing their position as someone at AQ7, simply by virtue of the way the cognitive intentions balance. No other system offers this kind of deconstruction when it comes to the levels of self-awareness and cognitive complexity. At the end of the day, it's about our choice in how we construct ourselves from a position of awareness. And if we take awareness as an actual object of attention, allowing people to disassociate from self and account for changes in self-awareness based on lived experience, we will contribute to our understanding of self and our relationship between awareness and habituated thinking. Habituated thinking manifests as habituated behaving, often called automaticity. Automaticity reflects the reinforcement between past and future behavior and the circular structure of repeated patterns. So that's all on self-awareness. Please look at the website for more information. Thank you for listening and watching. If you're interested in self-development and think that increasing your self-awareness is a useful endeavour, do get in touch with us today at the Institute for Adult Development, and we'll point you in the direction of some workshops. Please remember to like and subscribe, and take care.